times a week. But this right here, Sessler, is the television shows for the TV.
Yeah, and most people watching this on a Saturday morning, depending on where you live geographically, and it's a time when you'd probably want to take children places, do special things. Don't do kids events. Sit down and watch. Just plop yourself in front of the TV, Greg, and center in, focus, please.
Yeah, I think putting podcast people on TV, that's like a route for the future.
It is.
That's the future of television.
That is the future, and thank you. And any children that are stuck on their couches watching the show, we applaud you. Big show coming up. Every week we spin through the entire NFL. We go around the NFL 32 times. So we go around one time, we talk 32 teams. So let's talk the AFC first, starting with the AFC West. Greg, get us going on the Chiefs.
I mean, we're coming off the week of bad Patrick Mahomes tweets. Don't tweet in-game, people out there.
Are you not me?
No, you didn't.
Well, you're saying it to me.
No, you didn't.
The audience might think that
accusatory.
No, I just mean in general, people were looking to slam Patrick Mahomes. Don't do it. Patrick Mahomes brings joy. I mean, there was a moment in last week's game that I want to point out where he made that sidearm throw against his body, and it was just a reminder of why Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Watch this play right here. It's one of the best throws I've ever seen in NFL history. I really believe that if you watch a different angle of it, but just look at the reaction of his teammate right here, number 50. That's how Patrick Mahomes. That's how he makes me feel. That's how he makes me feel. That's all I want to say.
I'm with you that the brouhaha about the turnovers. Patrick Mahomes is working himself through something. I love that dance right there. For me, I would just say this. Anytime he makes a mistake, it's like this cauldron for talking heads.
We're dancing. We're still dancing here. I love it.
Still doing it. I deny the talking head. We're not talking heads, are we?
Greg, you are prone to hyperbole at times. That was not the greatest throw of all time.
There is another angle from the crowd where I just don't think any other person in the history of the NFL could make that throw.
Well,
how about that?
Okay, how about if 25-year-old or 26-year-old Patrick Mahomes in his prime making throws like that, lighting up the scoreboard week after week? How about he's number one in your QB index then? How about that? Why don't we start there?
He's not playing the best of anyone
Greatest
right now.
throw of all time.
He's not playing the best this season of anyone right now, but he had a jump pass in that game. He had a lot of ridiculous throws in that game.
466 touchdowns away to tie Tom Brady. I'm sure that will happen soon enough for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, within about 3 to 4 years, I would say. I think that's why it's hard to get freaked out about the Chiefs, as annoying as they've been on offense for stretches this year, and the turnover issues that were even an issue last week in the first half, including Mahomes playing a part. He's just too good. They're too good. And as long as they stay healthy, and Tyreek Hill seems to be on track to play this week, that is good. They will be fine. Moving on, the Las Vegas Raiders. The Versace bump.
Yeah.
Are we buying in on the Versace bump? The John Gruden.
Versace. Let's give the man some respect.
You didn't hear it. That was a silent A. You were hitting it hard.
Yeah, this is your version.
The Versace bump. John Gruden resigns in disgrace. Versace comes in. Everyone writes off the Raiders as a bad team that's only going to get worse. Talking about Greg specifically. And then they...
I picked them last week.
Then they deliver their best game of the season against Greg's beloved Broncos. So the question is, are the Raiders a team to reckon with, Greg, here in as we head toward the second half of the season with the Versace bump?
They've got a quarterback, I think, playing at a top 5 level. So, yes, they've got a pass rush. I think this week matches up tough for them against the Eagles. But I do think it's got to feel good to get rid of a boss that was a little domineering, that maybe made work not as fun. Versace, a lot of fun. He's like the easygoing substitute teacher that you just kind of that lets you have a little
Mark,
bit
do you remember when Greg was your boss?
Yeah, I do. How was that? Glory days. I don't know how else would I
wanted the best out of you little guys.
You were actually working remotely, and sometimes Dan and I would go out for a beer to discuss our boss named Greg. But I would just ask you this: what about the Broncos bump that they got? I mean, this is a team that under Gruden beat the Ravens in Week 1, so they were 3-0. I don't know this whole idea that they're so much better with a fill-in head coach. I'm not buying that quite yet.
Well, not so much better. I guess my point that I've been making on the podcast this week is that the Raiders were okay. They were actually a good team, a playoff caliber team, and then they lost 2 games in a row, so they lost a little of the shine, and then the Gruden thing happened, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, the Raiders stink, and they never went anywhere under Gruden, and they weren't building toward anything.
Well, they didn't.
Well, they started at a very bad place. Okay, by season 4, they are now a competitive playoff level team, in my mind. Not saying Gruden deserves credit. I'm just saying they weren't dead in the water.
So that's what it's about. That 4 weeks ago, we did a podcast where we had to stake our name to one team, and yours was the Raiders.
That's
I'm just
true.
remembering that.
I don't even remember that, but
I do. I didn't jump on that train with you.
I mean, there's a recency bias on the show sometimes, and I'm just pointing it out. Greg on the Broncos.
Here's a recency bias after watching the Broncos on Thursday Night Football. Don't build around defense. Never build your team around defense. That's what Vic Fangio did, and I think it's always a mistake because defense really requires an energy, a cohesion. There's something about it that just doesn't translate year to year. It's really hard to keep a great I thought this was going to be a top 5 defense. They're lousy. It's no discredit to Case Keenum and Dearness Johnson and what the Browns did, but the Browns defense over the last month has been bad. It's been a bottom 5 or 10 defense, and when you build around defense, this is what happens.
Yeah, I mean, look at Kyle Fuller, who they paid a lot of money to. Barely played 2 weeks ago, didn't play at all last night. Von Miller goes out of the lineup. Their pass rush has not been good to begin with. But how about this? Don't build around a non-creative play caller in Pat Shurmur and a quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater who has four interceptions over the last 2 weeks and killed him last night outside of 2 touchdown drives.
Well, that's the whole idea here. It's like your offense is at this level. You need your defense to be up here.
Right.
And that doesn't always work out, and it's not working out this year. Their pass rush has been an issue. Now Von Miller's hurt again. Hopefully not as serious as it looked initially. And then you have a secondary that was supposed to, I think it's the highest paid secondary in the league. They have draft assets all over the place, and it's just not coming together.
See, that game and that score it kind of proves my point. It was 17-14, right? The Browns only had 7 or 8 possessions in that game. The Broncos only had 7. They scored 2 touchdowns on those 7. That's points per drive. That's an average type of offense. And I know they started out poor. They had a couple 3-and-outs early, and Teddy threw that 1 interception. But you're not going to expect Teddy Bridgewater to give you more than 2 touchdowns every 7 drives. It's just not going to happen when you're missing.
Then you
receivers.
don't sign up for business with that situation.
But if they're
you want
that
more than 2
offense,
touchdowns every 7 drives, and they've been terrible on 3rd down. They've not been getting the job done on either side of the ball.
My point is that their offense did about as well as you would expect them to do last night. It's the defense.
I mean, if you're giving me some guff about staying behind the Raiders, I mean, your deflection away from Teddy Bridgewater in this conversation.
The Broncos are a boring, bad team to watch.
But you are Teddy fan number 1 in the universe, and he has not been a solution either.
No, he could have worked out if you had the defense and the weapons, but it's not happening.
Mark Anthony Sessler. Nope, it's Edward Sessler on the Chargers.
Yeah, don't mistake the middle name there. All right, when we talk about the Chargers, they were everyone's favorite team last week. Or were they totally forgiven for a godless implosion for the Ravens? I don't know if it's because they're the Chargers, and even out in L.A., they don't have a huge press contingent around them. It isn't like New York West.
It's like a small market team in Los Angeles.
It really is. Is that why they kind of faded off the radar and we're not really looking at that game and saying, wait a minute, were they
unmasked?
They
don't play this week. That helps.
Well, that doesn't mean we can't look back at history.
I think when we look back, the Chargers will say, this is the worst version of us, and every week, every team's going to have a bad week. Hopefully it's just one, and the Chargers are saying this was ours. And that goes for the quarterback, too, Justin Herbert, because that's the one that left me scratching my head the most, was how many throws Herbert missed and how confused and how they cooked him up. The Ravens, and credit Wink Martindale and that whole team, they cooked up the Chargers. Is there something for other teams to study about the Bolts going forward?
It should be. I mean, other teams should be blitzing, especially the right side of that offensive line. That was Herbert, that was the offensive line, and that was Joe Lombardi having no solutions. The defense has been mediocre to sub-mediocre all year, and I don't think they were much different against Baltimore. They need to figure out how to stop the run, because right now they have no one up front. They're not a tough team, but I don't think they're going to be that bad every week. That was an improvement.
No, there's a lot for Brandon Staley to work on against the run, especially. I mean, they've been beaten up on that side of it. For me, I think part of it is it's the Ravens, and we're looking at the Ravens as a team that's starting to peak into something very dangerous. Just book them for the AFC title game at this point.
Peaking in mid-October is a dangerous game, but the Ravens are in a good place.
Well, but I kind of
it's a tough time to play the Ravens.
I think the thing is they went through a month ago with all the injuries. You could some people were saying, well, maybe listen, in this tough AFC North, they'll fade. Instead, they basically said this is our division. The rest of the ham and eggers
stay on the Chargers, though, Sessler. Let's talk Chargers. Let's talk Bolts.
They get.
I think it's who they played. I mean, the Chargers will figure that if you have Justin Herbert, you'll figure it out.
Their defense hasn't gotten any better under Brandon Staley. It's worth pointing out. He's a defensive coach. Not any better right now.
Is it because, and you're a lifelong Browns fan, is it because the Ravens are technically the Browns that you wanted to have a little extra Ravens talk on the show today? Because you love the Ravens secretly?
No. I mean, just
they
to
won
clear
2
that
Super
up.
Bowls, so that that
Those are your Super Bowls on some level.
That's annoying and that's thorny.
All right, we're just getting started. All right, I get a little sling at Mark there. He gets a chance to come after me because we're talking about the Jets and the rest of the AFC East. Coming up next on the broadcast, do something, Zach Wilson. Do something for me and my dad. Welcome back to the broadcast presented by the Marines. We salute you guys. Thanks for watching. The AFC East. Okay, I do the power rankings. You guys know that. I mention it sometimes on the show. I got the Bills at number 2 right now, the Pats at 21, the Dolphins at 29, and the Jets at 30. Set up well for Buffalo to hold on in this division. All right, let's start with the Dolphins, who are supposed to be making a push this year. In fact, instead, everything has gone straight to hell. And it makes me wonder how bad this can get for Brian Flores, who entered, in control of the organization seemingly. We all loved him. We loved him on the show. How bad can it get? Instead, what we're getting now for Brian Flores is answering questions about Deshaun Watson reports, connecting him to the Dolphins, and the coach then has to talk about Tua. Here's what he had to say.
I don't really get into rumors. Tua's our quarterback. We're happy with our quarterback situation, and I'll leave it at that.
Sounds defeated a little bit.
It's tough. I mean, how bad could it get? I think we could see a whole new regime in Miami if things keep going poorly. And I think this week is crazy because they're playing the Falcons. You wouldn't think this is a big game. And yet, I feel like they could really use a win here to quiet this Deshaun Watson stuff down, because you do feel like if these rumors are out there, it might be coming from above Flores and above GM Chris Greer. And then they don't even have a choice of what's going on here. They're being put in a tough spot.
Yeah, I think that's when you talk about worst case scenario, where your coach, your GM, and the GM that everyone thought was doing a great job building this team, and same with Flores, that suddenly a year later it looks like a total mess. There's reports that, this is the team in the NFL that said, we're going to have 2 offensive coordinators. But there's whispers that it's Charlie Fry, the quarterback coach, who's calling plays.
That's
so,
incredible.
I mean, come on here, people.
There's 3. But here's what Dolphins fans, and I think everyone working for them should understand. Like, it feels like it can't get any worse. Here's how it gets worse. Like, trade for someone who's facing criminal sexual misconduct charges and civil charges.
Well, some
then
people
it gets
think
worse.
that's worse. Some people think that's a lot better, but that's
no.
That's
I think it's unquestionably worse that if any team trades for Deshaun Watson right now, like it's one of the most embarrassing things that's ever happened in the history of the league.
Listen, dude.
Before it's like settled.
We're not getting into a debate with you about that. I'm just saying whether I don't know if it's ownership. They're going to say we need to get a superstar quarterback in here. We haven't had one since Dan Marino, and they will look past all that other stuff.
I'm naive enough to believe that it won't happen, and it's a lot of hot air.
All right. Let's move on. Greg, the New York Jets. It feels like a setup.
I mean, I'm just excited to talk Jets, so, you throw that in there.
What just happened here?
What a great week.
Slightly underwhelming.
What a great week for Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh. You want to show us you're a new Jets team? You want to chant the Jets? Mm-hmm. Let's improve. You played against the Patriots 6 weeks ago. Let's show as a coaching staff that had 2 weeks to prepare and Zach Wilson that had 2 weeks to prepare that you've made some progress since that week when Zach Wilson was the reason that you lost, just like he was in London, that game that we saw.
Yes, and I'm always frustrated as a Jets fan, but I was mad about that London performance. Partly because we were there, of course, but also just it was all set up for them to continue and build towards something. Saleh, Wilson, the entire organization. Instead, it feels like they went back to ground zero, and I'm sick of being at ground zero with the New York Jets. So, yes, take this bye. Figure out what's wrong with the team. Figure out what's wrong specifically with your young quarterback in terms of making him more comfortable and get better, show improvement. You don't need to be a playoff team, but you need to show growth.
I'm not sure 1 week fixes all of it, but to me, the biggest thing about the Jets, they're 10-27 under Joe Douglas's GM. I don't think Robert Saleh has the parts to succeed or come out. And I hearing Greg talking about the Patriots being a great setup.
He's the number 2 pick in the draft.
I think we're seeing how good of a situation it is for Wilson. I think Wilson can be a good quarterback. It's been a big mess so far.
I don't think the roster is that bad on offense. I think the offensive line is up and down. I think they have skill players on the outside. The running game is a little left to be desired, but I don't think it's necessarily there's the cupboards bare. I think the quarterback needs to play better, and that's on Michael Flores, the offensive coordinator, to help get this kid upright and making plays again. They don't need to fix anything right now. They just need to get better.
They need to beat the Patriots, or at least be close, because
don't get embarrassed.
The Patriots over the last year and a half, since Brady left, have won about 8 or 9 games, I believe. They're well under 500. 3 of them are against the Jets. So, basically, the Patriots only beat the Jets and a couple other ham and eggers. This is a beatable Patriots team. You can get it done.
I can't.
Play the sound.
More on that later. But I still think, also, this is not the old Patriots anymore. You don't go there to New England and be like, well, we're going to get killed and the young quarterback.
They literally haven't won a game there. They're 0-3 in
the Patriots aren't special anymore. Davis Mills cooked them up the other day. Let's go. Let's fly.
I don't know.
Greg, on those Patriots.
Ooh, I look at this Patriots team and I wonder, could they be sellers before the deadline? I wonder, especially looking at their left tackle position, Isaiah Wynn, who has been up and down and in and out of the lineup. I just look at this team who got rid of Stephon Gilmore, especially if they lose this week to the Jets, whether they could maybe look to move some of these guys. Donta Hightower is another veteran. I just don't think they can be happy with this roster right now.
I mean, so you don't think that would create some disturbance in New England when you used, in March, a ton of cash to go refortify, rebuild this roster?
They did it when they were good teams. They would sell guys off. So I just wonder.
I don't put it beyond Belichick to do the unexpected. Someone like N'Keal Harry could go. I mean, I don't know how much you're getting for these guys that you're going to move
Isaiah Wynn is a first-round tackle who has played pretty well for stretches of his career and right now is in the doghouse. And he's a guy that, if I'm the Ravens, for instance, I'd give up a 3rd-round pick for Isaiah Wynn.
What's the ultimate destination, though, if you start moving players and you're Bill Belichick at this stage in your career?
I just think, at this point, Bill Belichick has lost the benefit of the doubt in terms of his team building. And it's all started, to me, well, you could even say before Tom Brady left, but once you botch the end of the Brady run in New England, now he's making these decisions. And what Mark's saying is true. You poured a ton of money into this team to get better and be competitive because you didn't want to be 7-9 again. If you go and sell off on Halloween, it's like, what are we even doing here? The Stephon Gilmore trade was absurd. I'm sorry. Like, what do you, unless you are looking to tear it down, but if you are, why are you giving $1 million or $500 million to tight ends? Like, what are we doing here anymore in New England? What is the plan?
Why are you getting rid of Stephon Gilmore to open up some cap space for Jamie Collins? I don't get it. Yeah, it just feels like a Bill Belichick move here that he's going to maybe surprise some people by making some trades before the deadline. I could see it.
All right. Finally, Mark, the Buffalo Bills, who are comfortably ahead in the AFC East.
They are, and I think they have to be asking, aren't we still the biggest and baddest bully at school, right? I mean, yes, you had a kind of ugly night against the Titans there, but does it really change?
It's really the right that sells it.
Well, listen.
Well, that makes a question like maybe there's some doubt creeping in.
Well, I think there may be some doubt after what we saw, but does that really change what you think about what the Bills can accomplish?
What's the school? What school are we talking about? The school of the NFL or the school of the AFC East? What school?
I'd say AFC East Middle School.
Hard Knocks?
AFC East Middle School.
Oh,
like, it's a lot of,
Yes.
2, 21, 29, and 30. That's the power rankings. The division doesn't matter, right?
How about
they're going to win.
How about AFC High School then?
Oh, AFC High School. Now we're talking.
I mean, I'd rather it be juicy. So.
Yeah, I would say they're the best team in the AFC, but I don't think it's by a wide margin.
It was a reminder that even really good defenses, kind of like we were talking about with the Broncos, can give up 30-plus points. Because I have no question they're a really good secondary. Maybe they do have a flaw there where the Titans match up well and they're not a good run defense. But, yeah, I think they're the best team in the AFC still. They're the most complete. They have the highest ceiling. And Josh Allen, after a little bit of a slow start, is playing about as well as he did a year ago.
Well, what's the definition of a bully? They kind of pick on people that they're bigger than or they could take advantage of. So let's see.
But
the Dolphins.
Were you a bully?
The Dolphins 35-0. Texans, they beat 40-0. So they bully the lesser than teams. Washington 43-21. And then when they have to play contenders, it's not been the same story. So
that's sort of how it is.
The good thing is they don't have to play any contenders for about a month. The AFC East schedule is nice. Were you ever bullied?
I don't think I would categorize it the way that. No, I think things were generally pretty smooth. He's asking if I was a bully. I'm like 5'7". What am I?
I never physically bullied anyone in my school. No.
Good.
Maybe my brother.
There was
my
definitely
brother,
some upperclassmen would just would come after the freshmen.
Stick Greg in a
line. I never did anything like that.
That definitely happened.
Yeah.
Definitely some high. I remember some high kicks in the hallway.
Buffalo thrilled. The city of Buffalo thrilled with the tail end of that conversation as we dug into the Bills.
Well, the Bills are going to be okay. I think that's where we're coming down on. All right, there you go. The AFC East in the can. Up next, the AFC North. The Cleveland Browns coming off a W, but there's a rising giant potentially with stripes on the helmet. Do we like the stripes on the helmet?
Oh, I love it.
Up next on the broadcast. All right, welcome back to the broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. We now move to the AFC North, and I will start with the Baltimore Ravens. Who's playing better than the Ravens right now? And I think, to me, the Ravens are proof that you could survive really any injury just about, as long as it's not your franchise quarterback. If you have a special, truly special talent at QB, you almost always survive. And these are the key injuries, just real quickly. Ronnie Stanley, their star tackle, is out for the year, barely played this season. Marcus Peters, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, A.J. Fort. That's almost 3,000 total snaps missed. They're 5-1. So that is just a credit to the organization. But if Lamar went down, we wouldn't be talking about a 5-1.
I mean, we saw him miss games last year, and you had, RG3 and others in there, and their offense was completely defunct. So you're absolutely right. I also think the Ravens are a little bit different than big chunks of the league. They deal with adversity differently. I mean, they had this thrown in their face. They took it as a challenge and went out and beat the Chiefs a couple days later. So I really see no ceiling for them.
Well, you can survive it if you're the Ravens.
Right.
You can survive it if you're the Patriots have had some of those seasons when they had Tom Brady. Like if you have Tom Brady or Lamar Jackson, you can overcome that, and that's about it. I mean, the Eagles, when they won the Super Bowl, were a very banged up team. Nick Foles comes in.
I mean, I'm talking about like how Lamar is a former MVP. Quarterbacks at this level, as long as you keep him upright, you should be able to survive and hopefully get more healthy. But the thing about Baltimore is like a lot of these guys are just gone. They're not coming back till next summer at the very earliest. So the depth of the roster is really, it's a credit to the whole gang.
I think Greg Roman has just got to be loving it because he's someone we thought could be gone by now with that offense that everyone thought a year ago. We figured out Lamar Jackson. Give me a break with that nonsense. The whole
I remember that
game,
story, that talking point.
Shotgun that out of there.
Speaking of nonsense, I have to say, you played the Jets chant earlier. You know, the privilege with the Ravens fans. You get everything. You got everything. You get wins, you get Super Bowls, you get one dynasty, and then you get a big-time team into the next big-time team. You don't get the Jets chant. Listen to this they do after scores. They've been doing it for years. Listen to this. Like, what are we even doing?
No, that doesn't work.
You listen, it's fine. You do the fine. That's not even yours either, but that's fine. You've taken it from the NFL.
Who's that? That's the Patriots?
That's like a soccer thing overseas. It's blown up, even though it's the White Stripes or American band. That's a whole other thing. But the Jets fans don't really have anything. We have the JETS chant. I see what you're doing, and I don't like it.
Whoa. They also did like a play like a Raven thing. I don't know if you remember that, but
everybody kind of did
Rex
that.
Rex Ryan stole that. It's a lot of
stealing. There was play like a Brown, and they went like 2-4.
No, but it's good to know that the Jets are the only team that are allowed to spell out their name or their words.
You're damn right. Okay. That's what we have. We have Joe Namath, who retired 50 years ago, and we have the chant. All right, moving on. Mark, Bengals.
All right, how about this? Over-under for Bengals win total. Whoa. Suddenly sexy Bengals. I have it at 9.5. Basically, are we buying this 4-2 start and who they are? Me, I am. I'm taking the over. I think they're going 10-7.
It's going to come at the expense of your Brownies, because I have to say,
I
have to say that if I had to now rejigger what I see in the AFC North, I think this is the other double-digit win team. It's the Ravens and it's the Bengals at about 10. So yes, I'll take the over.
I think all three can do it. Why not? I don't think the Steelers get there. I think they win the games out of the division. I will go more as well because that's only 6-5 the rest of the way. Now their schedule does get harder. They had the Lions last week. They've had some relatively easy wins, but it's the defense that does it for me. There's something about the juice on that defense that they are the better side right now. I'm more worried about their offense going into Baltimore this week and being able to hold up and being explosive enough and overcoming what I think's been like okay game management by Zach Taylor.
I watch the Bengals. I don't see a team that I'm worried about going to Baltimore.
They're below average.
Points.
To me, they're a below average offense right now who stays a little conservative considering the talent that
they have. A completely new attitude than I've seen from a Bengals team, especially in the Andy Dalton era and all that other stuff. You knew they were going to get waxed at some point in January. This completely feels different to me, and I'm still learning about Zach Taylor and the rest of them, but they're balanced on both sides of the ball. I think they are going to split with Cleveland. They could sweep Pittsburgh if they wanted to.
You think they can win this game?
Absolutely. Yes, I can. I do.
This is a big one. If they beat the Ravens on the road, all of a sudden it's like, wait a second here. we might have a team that could contend to win this division and get on a roll with a young team that doesn't know any better. Go win some games in January even. Now we're getting ahead of ourselves.
This was the game, though, that last year was, people were really excited about how Burrow started. And, Wink Martindale just put the bang thing on him. Like, they blitzed him into submission. Joe Burrow looked like a rookie, was struggling. So this is a game to show that he's different this year. Mark,
keep us going with the Steelers.
All right, the Steelers. Give them credit. It is tough to be this boring on offense. Okay,
that's not really credit. That's
well, I'm just saying, it's tough to achieve. The three of us here at SoFi, our new home here, we've got a wonderful theater where we get to watch Sunday Night Football together after we cover all the games.
What a gift!
And I mean, I felt like it was watching the sequel to like My Dinner with Andre, like watching the Steelers offense. A sequel nobody asked for. Why are
Roughly
we forced to watch this?
7 people get that reference.
I'm just saying this. Am I wrong about this? That this is a tough watch.
Is that the one with Billy Crystal and George Mirasan?
No, Billy
Crystal.
It's like
a French movie where they just are at dinner talking the whole time. Have you even watched it?
I have seen. It's like also like 190 minutes long. So I've seen a large portion.
It's interesting that this is the week that you're coming after the offense, because I feel like maybe a little progress.
I'm not looking at just last week's game. The overall product.
You're above the treetop.
To be clear, we're not at SoFi though. We did watch that film in the film room. We're next door.
Well, I'll say here we are in our corporate building adjacent to SoFi. Have we seamed that up?
They are trying to make it so that Ben Roethlisberger doesn't lose the game for him, right? I mean, they're trying to run the ball. Their offensive line actually felt like it's starting to get going a little bit last week. I think they've won their battles up front the last 2 weeks. They're running the ball. They're trying to throw it short to Deontay Johnson and Claypool and hope they can make plays.
Well, they haven't crossed 400 yards all year. Their points challenge.
They're trying to do what the Broncos have failed to do, aren't they? It's like our defense is the driving force here. Hey, quarterback, don't mess this up for us. And then the idea was to have a big-time running game with your first-round pick.
And it's happened
been a little hit or miss. It's starting to come together now. So listen, they might not be an exciting offense, Mark, and we know you love it. You love that they're not a successful offense.
I am not that petty.
The fact they got to 3-3, I almost feel like as bad as they have looked and as many injuries as they have, they're a team on a bye that has to be a little happy. It's like, okay, we survived that. We're in this season still.
I wouldn't say, Mark, on balance, that you're a petty person. But with the Steelers, you're petty as hell.
Petty. Yeah, you're petty.
You're petty as hell.
Thank you to you.
You're petty.
Spend my adulthood like rooting against the Ravens and Steelers. Tough scenario.
You're petty as hell.
No.
It's time for Fighting Spirit, presented by the United States Marine Corps. Marine Corps all over this app. Greg, Brownies.
You know who's not petty? Case Keenum. We're sitting here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. We're going to have a great feature on him later in the show. Watching Thursday night, I couldn't help but think of one of his best original bits on our show. Let your Case Keenum flag fly. Back in 2013, our first show, our first season as a podcast. He would always talk about it because when Keenum came in, and I forget which team it was. I think it was the Texans.
Yeah.
He started for 8 different teams. Yeah, Chris really got a kick out of the way Case Keenum played with some daring do, and he almost was ashamed of just letting his Keenum flag fly, and then he really just enjoyed the Keenum experience. I went and searched Keenum, flag, and Chris Wesseling. I found more 20 to 50 different tweets. So we're just flying through some of them. We've got some Connor Orr tweets, and it was a lot of fun over the years, just watching this guy. And Keenum did really let his flag fly last night. I didn't think he needed to get too crazy, but it was a lot of fun to watch him go win a game. What a great backup quarterback.
He did exactly what they needed him to do, and he's tied to Stefanski, knew him in Minnesota. Gary Kubiak previously in Houston, back when West fell in love with him. And I thought that for the Browns last night, that's exactly what this Browns team wants to do. And it was a pretty resilient, gutsy win to have a bunch of guys that weren't even in the lineup weeks ago starring for them. And Case Keenum is the best backup quarterback in the league.
Whoa. And I think he's the highest paid as well. So it's like, if you're going to pay that much money, this is what you want. And I think I would say he's the best backup in the league. And I would say Baker Mayfield's going to be itching to get back into this lineup because
he didn't have to do much though.
He didn't have to do much in this game, but if Keenum wins again and plays really well on Halloween, then maybe there's a conversation that breaks out, as annoying as that might be, Mark.
I think it was the perfect Baker game. I mean, for Baker, though. Because when it wasn't play action or when it wasn't schemed up, Keenum struggled in that game for the most part. He didn't have to do anything on his own. The running game did it for him. The defense did
Imagine Cleveland had Odell Beckham gone 8 for 142 with a 35-yard touchdown bomb from Keenum.
His stealing those 2 for 24 every game, so we don't have to worry about that.
That's just mean.
Well, it's true.
You're just waiting.
Look at the stats. That was Fighting Spirit presented by the United States Marine Corps. Coming up next on broadcast, AFC South. Oh, look at that guy. He's a freight train. Is he the best running back in the league, in the world? I think so. Up next on the broadcast. Welcome back to the broadcast. We now hit the AFC South. Let's start with the Tennessee Titans coming off that amazing win in prime time. All right, fight me. Derrick Henry, the #1 running back of the century so far. Let's go.
I have to get up and take my microphone off and just knock the old Zeuser out?
I'd like to see it.
I'll fight you.
No bullying. No bullying.
I'll fight you. I would take Adrian Peterson in a heartbeat. In a 21st century, that counts Danny.
In a heartbeat?
Not even close.
Are we watching what Derrick Henry's done the last 3 years?
I mean, I don't want this
to in a heartbeat.
I don't want this to dismiss Derrick Henry, but he just isn't as dynamic in terms of making runners miss. And I don't think he's not as good in the passing game. You're saying compared to Adrian Peterson, and in terms of down to down, being as successful, being as good in success.
I would just say that, look, I would give it to Adrian Peterson, but there's something really amazing and special about what Derrick Henry is doing right now in an age where fantasy heads are saying running backs don't matter. It's a pass-happy league.
It's not just fantasy heads.
No, I know. De-emphasize the running back. I think Derrick Henry is telling everyone, de-emphasize this.
And it's also, there's another guy that needs to be in the conversation, which is LaDainian Tomlinson. But
sure.
I threw him out there. Frank Gore, he could throw him.
No, I don't know about Frank. All right, let's move on. Colts. Greg.
I guess Frank Gore's not coming back. He never officially retired.
He kind of left.
Sign him up, Colts. Why is it so hard to create a topic bar for the Colts? It was just like the one team that I just kept staring at.
Greg, you're a professional.
I don't know.
It's your job.
I don't know what to say about them. Like right when you start getting excited, they're injured again. Paris Campbell, T.Y. Hilton, Julian Blackmon's now out for the season. Braden Smith's still not back. So right when I'm getting some juice, it feels like their injuries are the story of their season.
Well, that was the bar. That was the topic bar.
I guess. But
I'm with you, though.
Boring.
There's sort of an unidentifiable vagueness about the Colts. I mean, they're the team that almost beat the Ravens, and they feel like they're going to find a late December day that kind of basically says goodbye to your season.
Is this like an anti-middle-of-the-country bias we have right now?
I think so. I think that's what you guys got. I think this is a team that's...
What would your topic bar be?
Colts are improving every week.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Solid.
I like that.
And the Carson Wentz especially. Carson Wentz airing it out even, and it stinks because both guys he was airing it out to last week, Paris Campbell, who's out for the year, and T.Y. Hilton, who's banged up. But I was like, okay, I remember that guy. I remember that Carson Wentz. You got that guy with Frank Reich again in a weak division.
Colts are improving week to week.
Mark on the Texans. Not a team improving week to week.
No, and Greg here is a very big Where's Waldo guy. He's been to a couple Where's Waldo conventions in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Very hard to find.
Doesn't want anyone to know because it's sort of a tough part of his adulthood. But I would just flip it around and say of the Texans, where in the world is Deshaun Watson a fortnight from now? And in case you did not know, a fortnight means 14 days.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes. He is, man. So Houston Chronicles, John McClain, who's been embedded in that sports scene for decades, very strongly reported that he is on the way to Miami as soon as this week. So I don't know. But it's being refuted everywhere else because, as Greg was alluding to earlier, it's nuclear, the topic.
Right.
It's hard to imagine he's anywhere but the Texans facility working out awkwardly and separately from his team. It's a story like we've never seen in the NFL. Maybe I'm naive, but I want to believe in the NFL enough that no one is going to trade for Deshaun Watson this year. Like, wait to find out what's going to happen with him.
And if you trade for Deshaun Watson, you inherit all the uncertainty around him.
Right. He is a sexual predator.
Why would you, unless you're looking to get a discount? That could blow. I don't know. Let's not talk about it. Jaguars. The London win was one of the biggest in Urban Meyer's life. And this is a guy who's done it all in college. Who was one of the great winners in the history of the sport in the last 20 years at the collegiate level. But, I mean, has anyone's brand been battered at the level of Urban Meyer? Many of that, it's self-harm by being a doofus with some of his decision-making in terms of where he frequents and some of the team stuff. But, like, that was big for them because now they get to go into the bye and reset things. If they lost that game, they don't get to do that.
I tend to think that the Gruden fiasco might be the biggest win that Urban Meyer's had this season because it took the focus completely off of his shenanigans. Right. The team still feels doused in a fair amount of chaos to me, Greg.
Right. I think two things can be true. Dan's right. It was one of the biggest wins of his life. And yet the next, like when they finish 3-14, the next two won't be that big because they're either going to have the first or second pick. That's what I believe. Trevor Lawrence is getting better, though, and that is kind of the idea about this season.
Yeah,
I think his last 3 games have been much better than his first 3.
Yeah, it's not always going to be Justin Herbert, like where you hit the ground running as a star. You want growth, and that's what we were talking about with Zach Wilson. All right, here's a little conversation piece for you boys to chew on. Play NFL Knockout, the free-to-play game presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Answer 15 questions about the Saints-Seahawks game to win exclusive prizes, including a VIP package to this year's Super Bowl 56 in Los Angeles. Visit NFL.com/knockout.
Let's go 15 for 15.
Did you chew on it?
Yeah, I did answer all 15 questions correctly.
All right, I'm chew on this, baby. Who's better? Who's better? Who is better? You guys are going to really shine in this upcoming segment. Up next on the broadcast. Oh, yeah. Who's better? Presented by Truist. All right, this one's easy. Calm down.
Oh, wait, no, that's not how it works.
Who we're picking between.
Said a lot. That was what we call La Raville Magnifico. The Chiefs and Titans playing Patrick Mahomes or Derrick Henry. Who's better?
All right, I'm going to give Henry the benefit of the doubt here and just say, like, Henry versus other running backs compared to Mahomes versus quarterbacks. This year, I think it's Henry. Historically, it's absolutely Patrick Mahomes. I don't think any quarterback has started his first 3 seasons, as a starter any better than Patrick Mahomes. Dan Marino is the only person I'll even listen to in that conversation.
I can't disagree with that. I mean, if you're Derrick Henry, you form the entire identity of the Tennessee Titans around you. And
yes.
I'm with you, Dan, that, outside of maybe
as opposed to Mahomes, I mean, isn't he the identity?
But it's, for me, like, it's an automatic, like, of course Patrick Mahomes is more valuable. He plays a more important position.
Not more valuable.
He's transcendent.
Who's better?
So I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes over Derrick
But who's
Henry.
better presented by Truist?
Well, that's up to Truist. I don't know. They can just stick.
No, it's up to you. It's the question that's been presented
Patrick
to you.
Mahomes.
I said me. I said I'm better.
You said you.
The best player at his position ever.
According to me, speaking on behalf of Truist, and we love everything they do, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback of the 21st century. Derrick Henry is the best running back of the 21st century.
Okay.
Quarterback beats running back. Therefore, Patrick Mahomes is better.
That works.
So Mahomes is better than Tom Brady, which I think to me is like obvious that Patrick Mahomes at his peak has been better than Tom Brady at his peak consistently, but you get a lot of angry Patriots fans that don't want to hear that.
Well, do it for 16 more years.
I'm not. This is not to denigrate Tom Brady, but if you put Patrick Mahomes on the 2001 to 2018 Patriots, they're not winning less Super Bowls. I'll put it that way.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at Henry and his totals, just in terms of rushing yards and attempts, especially compared to the rest of the league, it's outrageous. Like, he's 35% ahead of the rest of the league. Like, that doesn't happen at other positions.
And I guess not to go back to the other conversation, but that's part of the reason why I'm just so impressed with the dude. He's just like unlike any running back ever. Maybe not as dynamic as an all-purpose back, but as a true force of nature, one of one, unique, Hall of Fame, no doubt, retire tomorrow guy.
Sure.
Patrick Mahomes is better. So I will say that. All right. That was Who's Better, presented by Truist. Coming up next.
Truist getting a little extra
West. Big pop for the
Ah.
Truist community. Oh, yeah, NFC West, best division of football. We're going to talk about them next on the broadcast.
Are they though? Yep.
Welcome back to the Around the NFL broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. The AFC is in the rear view. We're about to get into the NFC. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we remember our wonderful friend Chris Wessling with the help of the great Lakeisha Wessling, his wife. But before that, let's get into the NFC West. And Greg, I said the best division in football. I don't know. Maybe that's up for debate at this point with some developments. Yes, but let's start with the Cardinals. Nothing to debate there.
No, they are going to roll this week. They're going to be undefeated going against the Packers next week. And we're going to hear a lot about J.J. Watt. I'm just getting everyone ready for the rest of this season. Like, J.J. Watt's is going to be part of our lives. I was wondering, Mark, what your reaction was here during the Browns game when J.J. Watt was just shown repeatedly screaming either to a camera or the crowd. I'm not really sure. You can't block me. You can't block me. Over and over.
How did you feel about that?
Yeah, what was your reaction in that moment?
At this point, the game was an absolute mess from a Browns fan perspective, and it was very on brand for J.J. Watt to do that. I'm sure he practiced it in front of a mirror in his house.
Oh, that's how it felt.
But I will give you this. J.J. Watt he is right below Cam Hayward in PFF's pass rush grade at his position. He's been very effective. Wow. Arizona's defense does not get talked about enough because their offense is so overwhelming, but they have, I think they're second in DVOA right now, and they find ways to get to quarterbacks. They wrecked Baker Mayfield a week ago right there.
Now Chandler Jones, too.
Yeah, I'm here for the J.J. Watt renaissance because before the injuries caught up to him, he was the best defensive player of the 21st century. I think maybe Aaron Donald has taken that crown the last couple of years, but people might not remember how incredible Watt was. And he's not that player anymore, but the fact that he's still active and involved in playing for an undefeated team and where the hell he got out of, Houston, which is the worst place to be right now, that's good for J.J. Watt, who may be sometimes a little bit of an actor, but also a good dude.
You think he knew where that camera was, is what you're trying to say.
I think that, it's part of his job to know, and he's good at that.
Do you remember his contribution to hurricane relief a couple of years ago?
That's true. NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year.
I own one of his shirts. I wear it around the house a lot. There's some
his shirts? We're talking about hurricane relief,
He had a shirt company, or maybe he's
that's important.
He's playing better, too. I thought he started the season slow, and I was a little worried, like, what we're getting with the J.J. Watt experience this year. And in the last couple of weeks, like, he is making big-time plays.
And we had Sessler on the ropes there before you steered it back to football.
I don't know. I don't want to get suspended again. Remember?
No, we don't talk about that. All right, the Los Angeles Rams, I call it the McMia culpa. Nailed it. McVay admits he was kind of a jerk to Jared Goff. I don't know why this bothered me so much, but Jared Goff, #1 overall pick, came into the league with McVay as a head coach. They took the league by storm, had a few really great years together, went to the Super Bowl together, and then from that game onward, the 13-3 loss to the Pats, everything kind of went downhill. And I'm not saying the Rams made the wrong move to get away from Goff and bring in Matt Stafford. It was absolutely the right move. But the fact that McVay cut off communication with Goff before the trade, just the way he went about it felt disrespectful, and he addressed it with the Goff coming to town, and I'm happy he did. Greg doesn't have a soul, so this doesn't matter.
No, it does matter.
What are feelings? I don't understand.
Okay, I think it's great, but he's only saying it because he's asked about it repeatedly. Like, how you acted in the moment. And it's great that he's going to learn from it, but, we'll see how he learns from it. He learned from John.
Yeah, but you don't know that, Greg.
He learned.
You don't know if they had any private conversation.
We do. Jared Goff said there was no communication, and so he's not communicating now, of course, since.
Okay.
And Jared Goff even said this week, that's great, but that's what happened in the moment. I don't really care that much. I respected that response.
They sent him plenty of nice notes through the form of $100 million that he played.
It's not all about money.
I get it's not. I hear you. I think it's McVay. It's a learning point for a coach to communicate.
He benched him for John Wolford. That was more insulting than anything he ever did. After the fact, to me,
it was that whole thing, the whole storm.
I'm not overly worried about it.
The fact that Goff was playing hurt and in the playoffs, and then the way the press conferences, all the winking from the GM and the coach, we don't want to commit, and then you don't have any communication. Then you have your little Cabo vacation with Stafford, and away we go.
He was in a new romance to some degree.
Here's the thing, though. He learned from John Gruden, and sometimes I think the positivity that Sean McVay brings publicly, maybe he's learning that can feel a little disingenuous because he puffed up Jared Goff while he's taking out his kneecaps.
Greg will bring up John Gruden roughly 62 times in this show.
I'm just saying that's his hero, and that guy kneecapped players privately after puffing him up publicly all the time.
You'll defend Sean McVay in this conversation, but then attack Gruden for I don't even know.
I'm saying the McVay thing, saying he's was disingenuous about it. I'm not giving him that much credit for that.
Mark on the Niners.
All right, is the Shanahan brand on thin ice? And for me, I am a Kyle.
Your guy.
I'm like a Kyle O'File or whatever you want to call it, a Shanahanite.
Kyle O'File, I like
they
that.
talk. And first of all, obviously, Kyle Shanahan knows as much about football as anyone out there. It's interesting that Robert Saleh this week talked about the fact that it was Shanahan who unmasked Seattle's cover 3 defense when he was going against it in Atlanta when Dan Quinn was running that defense, that it basically changed the league. So there's no questioning his acumen, his skill. But you look at his overall record, it's less than Matt Nagy's right now. It's been injury-riddled. But right now, this team feels a little bit off base. They've lost 3 in a row. Super Bowl hopefuls don't lose 3 in a row. So I'll ask it again. Is the brand on thin ice, or is this just a little bit of rough patch of water?
Yeah, when Mark Sessler starts asking the question, it's on thin ice. I do think it's kind of a national conversation right now, too, looking at the overall record. You look at what they've done in personnel. They traded away DeForest Buckner. That has not worked out well. Here he comes back in Indianapolis. I think this is a huge week for this 49ers team and for the Shanahan brand. Jimmy G is trying to keep that job one more time. They've stuck with Jimmy G. Maybe it's only because Trey Lance is hurt. They need a win in the worst way to matter this season.
Put it this way. If Kyle Shanahan... If they went 6-11 this year and they fired Kyle Shanahan, he'd have a new job in a week.
They wouldn't do it, though, right? They wouldn't.
Well, they wouldn't. But if he got fired, he'd get hired again in a week or less. But at the end of the day, 5 seasons now, 6-10, 4-12, 13-3, 6-10, now 2-3.
A lot of injuries.
Need more results. Injuries happen. Need results. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. You need it offensively more than anything. I mean, this is the worst Shanahan offense that I've seen. The running game has been very erratic. They're not getting secondary receivers involved. It's worse than when C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins were behind quarterbacks. So far, it's only a 5-game sample, but this season has been the worst Shanahan 49ers
There's more to come with Trey Lance, though. I think that's where
he's the skeleton key here
right.
to save Shanahan and everything. But he's got to be playing, and right now he's not healthy. Seahawks, Mark.
All right, with the Seahawks, on our podcast, we have a thing called the fork, where we stick a fork in a team because we think they can't make the playoffs. And I did an individual. Usually it's a group thing. I individually forked the Seahawks. Will this be a big win for My Little Pony? Here's the second part of this. Before I leave it with you, is that if we lose, if they make the playoffs, I have to give a donation to a charity. And, there's a lot of nice charities out there, but I found it's a meetup scenario in Seattle amongst bronies. It's like a My Little Pony fan club. A nice gentleman named Austin runs it, and they have over 1,000 members. Here's a picture of some brony convention.
Is that you in the back there?
No, I'm not one myself, but I just thought it's an interesting thing for me to donate.
You're gonna donate? What do they use with the money?
If Seattle makes the playoffs,
you will give money to the My Little Brony
I will donate
community.
Something to them. I'll find a way to reward them in some way.
I think you'll donate your presence at their next Los Angeles
So we're here
chapter.
in Crucial Cancer Awareness Month, and you're donating to the bronies?
Well, I'm thinking forward. I'm going in a different direction.
You just want to go to this convention.
How about
embrace it.
I know I don't.
We talked about this a lot before the show, and Dan said it was a safe space. That if you wanna
now we're on
embrace
television. This isn't as safe anymore.
I never agreed on any level that it was something that I wanted to do, Greg.
I think I am very invested in Seattle being terrible this year because the Jets have their #1 pick. So here we go. Let's go, Geno Smith. How about 12 starts to close things out?
You do wonder with Russell Wilson, let's say Geno doesn't get it done against New Orleans this week. They got the Jaguars next week. That's a winnable game. But let's say they keep losing. Does Russell Wilson's future, in terms of not wanting to play for the Seahawks potentially, impact how quickly he comes back from this injury? Is he going to want to play through a risky injury right now with his future up in the air?
Do the old A.J. Green.
I'm just getting ahead of this conversation. Get a win and you don't worry.
He's a businessman, and they should all be businessmen. But Russell Wilson's a legit competitor. And I think unless the season's over and there's no chance, if he has a chance to win 7 games in a row and put them in the playoffs, Russell Wilson's going to take that chance.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on the Seahawks, by the way.
Well, you didn't fork them. I did, so you won't be having to pay the fine.
That was pretty thinly veiled, though, Mark, in terms of what you actually want to do. Let's just acknowledge the brony.
First of all, the segment is ending in 8 seconds. I have no ability to retort. This is not how this should be working.
We're coming back. The NFC East. I'm just happy that was a conversation on the league's network. I mean, I'm just thrilled about that, Mark.
You've brought up the bronies a lot of times over the years. I've never heard about it from anyone else.
Coming up next on the broadcast, NFC East. Welcome back to the broadcast. So we're talking about the AFC East and how that is one team way out ahead and then a bunch of filler down below. That's the NFC East as well. Greg, get us going with the Cowboys, who are clearly above everyone else.
Yeah, I don't think any team went into their bye feeling better than the Dallas Cowboys. And I want to point out Randy Gregory as an example of the Cowboys way, if there is such a thing. Like, working. I get on the Cowboys a lot for self-scouting and handing out money and believing their own hype. They stuck with Randy Gregory through suspensions and all sorts of problems for years and years, and they basically decided talent's more important. We're going to deal with it, and it's finally paying off. I never thought Randy Gregory could be this big of an impact maker. He has been on that roster, I believe, for 7 years now, and very little of it has he been on the field, and it was Jerry Jones kind of letting these players work out their personal issues, working out well for them.
I love this topic. I mean, it is a very Jerry Jones-ish scenario because it's the only owner who also is a GM who becomes fascinated with people, personalities, and players. Overpaid them in the past a lot.
It happened going back to Michael Irvin and that whole first Cowboys team.
This is a good example of that. Yet, I mean, from a team-building perspective, Gregory has missed multiple full seasons. So you know, it's a special situation. You can't treat your whole roster this way, but it's a Jerry Jones thing.
And and we hope his personal journey is smooth sailing going forward, but we'll see. But he is the second longest tenured player, and just by history, suspended 14 games in 2016, the entire 2017, 2 games in 18, the entire 2019, the first 6 games of last year.
That's crazy.
So you're right. I mean, in terms of like sticking with a player and believing the man and the player, let's hope he stays on the right path.
Right. I want to. It's not just because he's good at football. I do, if you listen to like former Cowboys and talk about it, I think Jerry Jones really does personally invest in these guys. So you have to give some credit for that. It's the opposite of what Bill Belichick, is known for in terms of having like, personal feelings about him. Like Randy Gregory, I think, is going to love Jerry Jones, the man, for the rest of his life for what he's done for him.
And the defense in general, one of the biggest surprises in the NFL this year is that Dallas's defense has been a difference maker in games. I never thought that would happen, and you got to give credit to
You get DeMarcus Lawrence back at some point, too. That's pretty big.
Pretty good. It's a good time to be a Cowboys fan. All right, Mark, the Washington football team. Not so good to be a football team fan.
No, I would just ask this. Ron Rivera, obviously a change agent in that city, culture-wise, has done a lot. It's great for the Washington football team, but they didn't go out and get a real quarterback, and now they're paying for it. Is there too much kid glove treatment with Ron Rivera's approach to, I think, this offense at the most important position?
It's a little unfair because we never even got a chance to see. They went out and got Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he got hurt in week 1.
I'm putting Ryan Fitzpatrick as someone that I never thought was going to probably play a full 16 games.
But what were they going to do? Like, how do you get a real QB?
Draft someone.
I mean, they were pretty late in the draft.
I thought they were unaggressive on this front compared to what some other teams. You even heard what they were going after.
I guess I'm not buying what you're saying.
They tried to get Matthew Stafford. I don't blame them.
And I think if the defense continues to crater the way it has this season, Ron Rivera is going to get if what you're looking for is Ron Rivera to get the criticism for his struggles.
I'm not dying for it, but it just feels.
Look, more kid gloves for Ron Rivera.
Because I think
want Ron Rivera to be punished.
No, Ron Rivera, because most people watch us, with the sound off. It's just like on the team facility. If he's walking in the Washington facility and he sees this, you think he's excited about it?
No, I don't. I'll never go back. I went to college there. I'll never return to the city again.
But he's not gonna get out of this unscathed. If that's what you're asking, if they really do crater, he's in danger, I think.
Right church, wrong pew, because their defense is terrible. But they thought they had a deal for Matthew Stafford. It's one of the great sliding doors moments of this offseason. Yeah. They were giving up first-round picks for Matthew Stafford, and the Rams stepped in and got him.
Changes everything.
So they tried.
I still feel like you went into the season as one of the three teams that didn't have like a rock-solid hope at quarterback.
Funny thing is, quarterback doesn't feel like their problem. Like, it feels like Heineke doesn't have enough weapons around him, and the defense is the worst defense or one of the worst in the league.
All right, let's move on to another head coach at NFC East who's in trouble here. Joe Judge, the Giants, 6-10 in his first year, but you heard a lot of buzz that he was well-liked in the organization and this and that, and his tough nose, and he's old school, and Joe Judge. Now, they stink. The Giants are really bad. They're really beat up, but they're bad too. You can't just hide behind the injuries with this team. Can Joe Judge separate himself from the bathwater? Because there is a purge coming for Big Blue.
He's the baby in this scenario.
The ownership, the Maras, they're very upset with the way things are. And I think Dave Gettleman's going to run out of chances if this season continues on this trajectory. I think Daniel Jones is probably going to run out of chances if this season continues on this trajectory. How does Joe Judge, the head coach, keep himself from being tossed out as well? I think he's in a little bit of trouble here.
I think what's difficult is because we just talked about Kyle Shanahan. The win-loss record aside, there's this identifiable part about Kyle Shanahan where he is a super talented play caller that elevates your team and your ceiling beyond others. And this is not a former offensive or defensive coordinator. This came from a special teams type of guy where it's like, what's this special trait that Joe Judge brings to the Giants? Right now, it's a lot of losses. They're asking Joe Judge
But
today.
you put this on Joe.
I don't put everything
roster,
on it. I just think it's, but I think it's too early to throw him out with the bathwater and the babies and all this business. I would not do that.
Don't throw your babies out. Keep your babies.
Babies are not autonomous.
No, my answer is no, because John Mara and this ownership keeps making this mistake over and again. Remember McAdoo? And then it's Shermer and it's Judge, and they weren't timing up the GM with the coach firing at the same time. They kept Gettleman, but then Gettleman had to take Judge. Like, that's a losing recipe. This used to be, we're the classy New York franchise. We do everything right. The right way is to restart and not make your next decision maker take Joe Judge. That doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't, and that is Joe Judge. I feel like
he's in a tough spot.
He's in a very tough spot. They need to finish really strong, and that's when the injuries come in. It's like, how do I put together a strong finish when the team that's already kind of flawed at the surface is all beat up?
They looked like the worst team in football last week.
This was the team known for not getting rid of coaches, and if Judge doesn't make it, they would be on their fourth coach in about 7 years.
They've been churning through him. Mark on the Eagles.
All right, role play, : You're an Eagles front office bro on the spot. Hurts or not?
A faux bro. I like that.
Yeah.
I would say that
I'm thinking
probably where they're at.
A front office person has to be thinking like, this is a team with 2 first-round picks, 3 if Wentz keeps playing for the Colts. You've got a chance to make a major move. You're the power broker in next year's draft.
I'm going to role play. Mark, we're 5 games into the season, 6 games into the season. We wanted to see him over the course of the season. We want to make our decision afterwards. It's too early to tell. I would just, as a front office member,
very measured.
I would just flip it around on you. What's with all the brony stuff and then role playing right after that.
Is
there more that you want to tell us? Because you were just talking about bronies. Now you're talking about role playing. What's going on with you?
This is happening. Is the tape still running on this show? I will address that at another time because you're creating narratives and you're getting off topic here.
Let me get back on topic and say that Jalen Hurts, with some drives at the end of games, has made his numbers look better, has made games more competitive. But is the front office looking at him from quarter to quarter and saying, okay, we have a lot of things to fix on this roster. Quarterback is one we don't have to worry about. No, I think that's very much an open conversation whether he's the guy. And if you put me on the spot right now and said, is Jalen Hurts their quarterback to start next season? I'm going to say no. I think they're going to make a move.
I would agree, but it's 6 games in, so it just
that's where we're at. That's the question.
I get it, but they don't need to ask that question. If the draft started today, and it won't, that would be weird if it did. They have 3 top 10 picks. They have the 2, the 8, and the 9.
Right.
So whatever you can do to upgrade from Jalen Hurts with those picks, I don't think it's necessarily a rookie. It's maybe trading for a veteran. Then you probably do
I just think no matter what he does, they may be tempted to upgrade. No matter what.
You don't think if he played great the rest of the way? He hasn't been great, but he's been okay.
And by the way, I don't want to bring it up because you're going to get upset again, Greg, but the Eagles have been connected to Deshaun Watson as well.
I'll believe it when I see it. In the offseason, when they know, I'm just saying when they know what the situation is, if this man is going to jail or not and how long he's going to be suspended, then maybe you can start working out a trade.
I'm just saying, this is an organization that is looking for a long-term fix at quarterback.
They'll be in the mix.
This is how front office bros should be talking.
This is how the bros talk in the front offices. That you guys should know that. All right, here we go. That's just bro talk in the front office in an FO, Greg.
Faux bro.
Faux bros. All right, NFC North up next. Packers, Bears, Vikings, Lions. We talk about all 4 on the broadcast. Oh boy, here we go. Welcome back to the broadcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. Time for the NFC North. Let's get going with the Packers. Do they deserve a spot in the NFC's Core 4? Arizona is a big-time Super Bowl contender. Tampa Bay, Dallas, that's 3. Is there a Mount Rushmore for the Green Bay, or are they a cut below?
Well, you got the Rams belong in there.
Are they in the Core 4? Do the Packers belong in the Core 4?
I'd put the Packers at number 5, and I'm surprised that I'm saying this in October. It's because of what I've seen from the Dallas Cowboys. I think
but they're in. Cowboys are in. Arizona, Tampa, Dallas. should there be a fourth spot for the Packers or the Rams
I see what
or
you're
someone
saying.
else?
I would make it a core. Can I make it a core 5? I'm making it a core 5.
Too big. Core
Doesn't
5.
matter.
They do not belong in that top core.
They're 5-1, and they can get better. They remind me a little bit of the Ravens in the NFC. That we haven't seen the best out of the Packers, but Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback. Matt LaFleur is 31-5.
What a joke.
Wait, just because it doesn't rhyme, they're all 5-1 or better. It makes total sense. They belong there. I'm not taking any out.
I do not have that kind of trust in the Packers for some reason. I love that their ground game works.
How about the Alive 5? The Alive 5.
No, but
Alive 5. I mean, they're all alive right now.
I don't want your Jive 5.
I have the Packers just below those 3 teams. That's why I brought it up. And I think you can maybe put the Rams ahead of them, but I don't. I think the Rams are also just a step below those other teams.
I put the Rams ahead of them, too.
And I know, we have to set the power rankings, and we have to talk about where they are now.
Right.
And so right now, I guess not, but I'm not worried about right now for them because I think they will keep getting better. I think they have gotten better. Their defense is getting better. They're not healthy on defense. And Rodgers and their offense, I think, is going to get better throughout the course.
Well, you can't just punt on all these questions.
I mean,
I'm not punting. I'm saying they're in it. They're in it. They're in the 5.
You did that to Mark, too. We were trying to talk about the here and now Jalen Hurts. You punted. Now you punt on the core 4.
It's like when you're on the witness stand. I have a lot of experience. You just answer the question you wish you asked. It's the same thing with press conference.
This is what we're dealing with here.
All right, Greg, hit us on the Bears.
Justin Fields gets a little better each week. He really does. I've been enjoying watching him play. He makes a couple big-time throws each week. They're very conservative. This is the toughest matchup that he's had. So I just want to see where he's at right now because I think there's a chance Tampa could blitz him into submission and he starts looking like he did against Cleveland.
Right.
But if Nagy and Fields have really made some strides, I think he'll show us something this week, too.
I mean, 9 sacks against that Browns team, and he's, I think he's taken 18 on the year. He's taken a lot of punishment.
That's only 9 in 4 games since, though, then. That's pretty good.
I'm with you, though, at his play, and I thought that he made some incredible throws against the Packers last week. You see right here what he can do with his legs. I think they have to this may be the week where you have to say, we've got to give him a chance to just unleash, because if it goes according to script, you're not running on the Bucs. I know that they're missing a few guys this week on defense, but you're not running on them. Their secondary's a little banged up. It could be a chance to give Justin Fields a couple big throws here to be a difference maker in a game they're probably not going to win.
And I'm excited to see where Justin Fields' career goes, but I'm not excited about watching the Bears yet. And while he has improved, they scored quickly last week and then went completely in the tank for a couple quarters before getting that game close. I think they're in a similar situation where the defense has to carry the day, and if you get against a team that's going to score on you, which their opponent this week will, then they're in trouble. I don't think they're ready yet. No
Gronk, no Antonio Brown, so maybe that helped. The Bears did keep the Bucs to double digit or 19 points last week.
I think that matters too. That a lot of that translates to this year for the Bears. Their defense is better.
They're better than they are. I think Justin Fields, they got to open it up a little bit more. But one thing he showed, you mentioned it with the scrambling, he hasn't used his legs. And I thought at the end of that game against Green Bay, he started to make plays with his legs. Let's start having a little better instinct of when to leave the pocket and just take the first down. You're one of the best runners in the league at quarterback.
All right, let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings, Mark.
All right. I mean, the Vikings have been, we focused on them on our podcast because they've been fascinating. Their offense has been good. Kirk Cousins has looked good. But will Kirk keep good Kirking, or will he bad Kirk soon enough?
Bad Kirk.
I just think, I feel like you guys have a little bit more faith in the Kirk Cousins experience than I tend to. And I just am kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop, but he looks really good in this offense.
Kirk is one of the sneaky best names, like Kirk Cousins. I just like it.
Is it?
Let's say this. He's going to have a stretch where he's going to stink for a couple of weeks. He's had that. It's popped up a little bit. Last couple of weeks, he was great again last week against Carolina. So there will be, but at the end of the day, when you look up, he's going to have some of the best numbers of any quarterback in the league, which gets overlooked a lot. So I think he will keep good Kirking because Kirk is good, even if sometimes he is not.
Chris Wesley was the first one of us to really believe that Kirk Cousins at his peak was like a really good quarterback and that no one was giving him credit. You know what? He was right. And it's been played out. He's very streaky, Kirk Cousins, throughout his career. This year, I don't see the streakiness. I see 6 games of top 10 to 12 level quarterback play. Like, I'm impressed. It hasn't happened yet. No bad Kirk.
I'm with you. They are he's in an offense, though. The Vikings do go to sleep for drives at a time.
A lot of times it's because they go run pass, though. Like that throw you saw to Osborne, there's an open receiver in front that they could have picked up a first down in overtime, keep moving the ball, and Kirk decides to let his guy go get it. He's been doing that with Justin Jefferson, does it with Osborne. I'm impressed. Like he is playing like a top 5 quarterback if it wasn't 2021 with everyone going crazy.
The Browns shut him down. The Lions, they were not overly impressive in those games.
But I thought he played pretty well in those games.
But
really did.
I should say he's not Patrick Mahomes.
No.
And every offense basically has bad weeks. So just because they're not scoring 30 points every week doesn't mean there's good Kirk and bad Kirk. It means they're a very good offense that prone, like any other offense, just about to games here and there. So I think Cousins has never been the problem in Minnesota.
Well, he has been the problem. Okay,
sometimes.
But
Well,
yes,
something maybe behind the. I don't know. Well, look, I mean, we talked about that sideline.
On the field and off the field.
Until next week when we talk about Kirk Cousins again.
All right, Detroit Lions, the Stafford reunion, and that's what we're going to get here in Los Angeles. Matthew Stafford, the former #1 overall pick of the Lions. It's going to be a reminder for Lions fans of what could have been. I mean, Stafford is a great quarterback. I don't think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback unless he has a really great second career here in Los Angeles, but a guy you absolutely could have built a championship roster around, and he could have taken you there. And as you're seeing with the Rams right now, Detroit just never could. They never could do it.
They had a long chance to do so. He kind of reminds me of like the person that breaks up with someone and then goes across the country to move to LA. That's literally exactly what he did.
And I don't think he's that much different either. Like, if you look at the PFF grade, I know that's not perfect. His grading is pretty similar to where it was throughout his Lions tenure. They did make the playoffs 3 times in Detroit, so it was never about Stafford then, and to me, it's only partly about Stafford. It could not have been more
hyper vanilla and underwhelming than it was.
I'm just saying, there's some, like, bad runs of quarterbacks. He did make the playoffs 3 times.
This should have happened 8 years ago.
But they just never built, like the Rams built a roster that he plugged into, and they're a Super Bowl contender.
It really was.
The Lions never did that. What might have been? All right, coming up next, the NFC South. The Buccaneers, they're banged up, but they keep winning. Here we go. We're going to get into it. Saints, Panthers, Falcons. Greg loves the NFC.
The dirty.
Don't do that.
The dirty.
Uncomfortable.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to the broadcast. And now we hit the NFC South. And let us start, Mark, with the defending Super Bowl champions.
I really enjoy watching this team, but I want to ask you this. So good they're boring? Like, are we not really looking at the Bucs and saying how special this really is?
This is perfect. This is exactly the type of season you want to have when you're a defending champion. It's like You're just taking care of your business. You're winning football games. You're moving on, and you're getting to January to defend your title. You don't want the drama of a 2-3 start or some hideous injury or some falling out on the sidelines because egos are too big after titles. Everything's fine right now.
It's great. I think it's a great question because I would say they're fun to watch. Like, I love watching Tom Brady play at this level. But they're boring to talk about because I don't know what else to say.
Right.
They've done it all. They're kind of the same team every week. They're without a lot of players, as you see there. Antonio Brown and Gronk. We'll see if that matters. But like, they're so consistent. I don't know what to say about them. But they are still fun to watch for me.
I think it's like Brady's brought some of that sort of methodical Patriots business to Tampa Bay, which kind of, but I also look at like what they've done with Leonard Fournette, who Chris Wesley back in the day, labeled Battleship Fournette because he had a tough time changing, but he looks great right now. And it's like players are rising up in this system.
The Patriot mythology or whatever you said there, maybe it was the Tom Brady mythology all along.
Right.
So the reason why this team has rolled right into a title defense is because Brady won't allow anyone to rest on their laurels because he's working harder than anyone else and preparing and letting everyone know you can't just rest on the fact that you're the champion.
Well, and they also didn't really find who they were on offense until week 13. But now it's like that offense is still there. So it's the team that you saw from week 13 on offensively, but you get to see it for the whole season. They're so good.
So banged up. Antonio Brown out, Gronk out, Sherman out, JPP questionable, Levante David out. They're banged up, but again, as long as you got the quarterback,
make it
as
close.
I was saying earlier,
make it close, Chicago. Maybe give me a game. I picked that in our draft on the podcast. Let's go.
Yeah, good luck on that.
That should motivate them.
Greg, the Saints.
The Saints are about to get a lot better. I don't know if it's going to happen this week. They're playing against Seattle on Monday Night Football, but they're getting Traquan Smith. They hope back at receiver. Will Lutz, a Pro Bowl kicker. They've had maybe the worst kicking situation in the entire NFL. Marcus Davenport, their best pass rusher. Cam Jordan not playing well right now. Quan Alexander could be coming back. Michael Thomas could be coming back. I'm forgetting some players here. There's even more. It's crazy. They are getting like all these big trade acquisitions right now.
And this would be one team where if you're Sean Payton, with Jameis Winston at quarterback, a lot of people out of the lineup, it was a month plus of, investigating what you have, who you are,
3-2.
And you're starting to round in, and they've won some impressive games.
I like the Saints.
It's Ron Armstead, too.
Like the Saints, Jameis Winston still is the fly in the ointment for me. If they're going to win, if they want to get where they want to go, which is back to the Super Bowl, I know his numbers are okay so far, but
it's probably a one-year thing, though.
They finally started to trust him against Washington, and there were ups, there were downs, but I think that's what they're going to have to do. Let them fly.
All right, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers, Mark. You have a love affair with Kyle Shanahan. You also have a love affair with Matt Rule. And
you love coaches.
You were getting on Ron Rivera for not going hard after the right quarterback. Well, is Matt Rule having second thoughts about his QB again?
Well, I think yes.
Teddy last year,
because
Darnold now.
He's announcing when he didn't need to that we need to change the focus of this offense. We want to be more run heavy, run reliant, and you don't have Christian McCaffrey. So that's telling you, we've got to play around the lower aspects of Sam Darnold to some degree. They did try to investigate Matthew Stafford as well. I mean, they were one of those teams. I'll always look at them and say, you took J.C. Horn over Justin Fields, over Mac Jones. Let's see how that works out.
Supposedly they loved Mac Jones too. That was an interesting decision. But they already gave Darnold his money at that point. The craziest part about the Teddy signing and the Darnold signing was they gave him a second year guaranteed when they didn't have to.
Sure.
In both situations. So they ended up eating a lot of money with Teddy, and I think they might do it again with Darnold if he keeps this up.
And I guess Rule, because he's such a powerful voice inside that building, I guess he gets to skate to year 3 if this goes sideways.
Yeah.
But those are two big whiffs personnel-wise.
Right.
If this
Let's give
doesn't
him
work.
some time. This is a big week, big win for them.
He's
Not
like
a lot
a
of
10-year
coaches get that much
contract. He's
time.
going to get to year 3.
I'm giving Darnold more time. It's only
They
6
gave him a
weeks.
10-year
It's like
contract?
an 8-year I mean, Rule's contract is
one.
massive,
It's a
and
long
it's
one.
not ending anytime soon.
What did he do to earn a contract of that size?
won over
It's
the
that
owner
the
big
Giants
time.
wanted to hire him. That's what it was. The Giants wanted to hire him.
Whoa, Greg on the Falcons.
Got another buzzer in there. The Falcons, are they entering sneaky, fun-to-watch territory? Maybe it's just the high I'm still on from London.
Oh, stop it with this. This is a
Kyle
bad category.
Pitts, Cordarrelle Patterson, Mike Davis.
He's
You
chewing
get
up that
Calvin
one
Ridley
shot.
back. Yeah. Give it to me.
Oh, come on. Now we like watching the Falcons? All right.
Pitts is enough for me. And Cordarrelle, those
You see
two.
one stiff arm on the sideline at Tottenham Hotspur
You're
Stadium.
telling me Pitts and Patterson didn't do it for you there.
They did. I really like Pitts. I love watching him. current, like, latter-day Matt Ryan doesn't excite me, especially when there's a pass rush getting after him. It starts to get a little depressing, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, their defense also makes them fun to watch because it's going to be shootouts. But they, on offense, 28+ over the last 2 games, 400+ yards. Matt Ryan has like a 10-3 touchdown to interception ratio over the last 4 weeks. So if you're Arthur Smith, it's starting to look like what you want it to look like.
And that's what we talked about in the summer. I'll give you that Arthur Smith would come here, he would juice the offense a little bit, and then Kyle Pitts would be a superstar potentially. We're not there yet, but we shall see. All right, there we go. Coming up next on the broadcast, oh, there he is, our boy Chris Wesley. We lost him in February of this year, and we're going to talk about him with his wife, Lakeisha, up next on the broadcast. Earlier this year, our colleague, our brother, Chris Wesley, passed away from cancer at the age of 46. He leaves behind a young son, Lincoln, his wife, Lakeisha. She pens a letter to their son to tell the story of a man who touched the lives of so many people around the world.
You did get funny stealing daddy's glasses, you little bully. Hi, Link.
This is our son.
I remember thinking, they let us take him home from the hospital. That means they can never take him away from us again. He's ours.
Dear Lincoln, it's hard for me to write this, but I know one day you will ask me about your dad, Chris. He was taken away from us after his second battle with cancer. You were just 8 months old at the time. Let me tell you his story.
Good times.
He was raised on the west side of Cincinnati, one of 7 boys. Naturally, sports was a big part of the Wesleyan household. At a young age, he had an infatuation with books and sports, which led him to doing some writing of his own.
Growing up, it was always his passion, and he would even have things written out and notes on paper, these fine printed notes about sports. And we had this old computer. It was I don't even know what it was. He actually wrote like a magazine and spent, I don't know, a month on it probably, previewing football. And then it crashed, and the whole computer crashed, and he lost all the data. I've never seen him more angry in my life.
It took some time for him to figure out what he wanted to do in life. It wasn't until he started writing about fantasy football as a hobby that he began to think that sports writing could be a career for him.
Well, he was too good a writer to be writing about fantasy football, which is how I first heard of him. I saw him on a message board. Not only did he have like the best insights into who they were as football player, but he would like include parts about life, and you just wouldn't normally see that in a football writer. And I kind of knew, oh, who is this guy? I gotta find this guy.
The NFL Network is where your dad and I met. We played together on our work softball team, became great friends, and then fell in love. 10 months after we started dating, we were hit with devastating news. Your father had stage 3 esophageal cancer.
When I put the camera in, saw right away the tumor. It's very memorable when I find cancer in anybody, and especially esophageal cancer. It's rare, it's unexpected.
I was a little stunned at first. Cancer doesn't run in our family, and it didn't seem like there was any health risk that would cause anything like that.
When Chris was diagnosed, he had relatively locally advanced disease. And so what we first did was we treated him with chemotherapy and radiation in an effort to get him to a point where surgery would be possible in the future. And that's a pretty challenging treatment plan.
And he honestly recovered even faster than we thought, I think. And then, yeah, it was amazing. And he seemed happier and healthier and just better than he had ever been before.
After his final round of chemo, it was like a rebirth for him.
There is that feeling of being forged by fire, like you can become a better person. It's a fresh start. There's a new chapter in your life, and it is what you make of it.
And we made the most of it. We got married on Tybee Island in Georgia. Then a few months later, I became pregnant with you.
Wine is blue because we're having a baby boy! Oh, look at that!
He was so excited to become a dad.
Will Manley. Will Manley.
The hospital that you took your first breath in would be the same hospital where your dad took his last. A few weeks after you were born, we found out his cancer had returned, and this time it was different. The cancer was in his bones.
It felt like a gut punch. I think we all knew it was a little different that second time, right from the get-go, because there were more questions than answers about it.
His last podcast was beautiful. He was fighting through, the end of his cancer battle.
That is a championship-packed field.
The last appearance I remember was after a Cleveland Browns victory, and he only had enough energy to do about 10, 15 minutes. But our friend Mark is the biggest Browns fan ever, and him and Mark were so close, and he was so happy for Mark, and he made sure he was there for that moment. I didn't know Chris was dying. I really didn't, but we knew that moment was special.
Looking good, Wes. Sounded good. Thank you for joining us. We love you, buddy.
We love you.
Love you guys, too.
There we go. Is Chris Wessling.
On February 5th, 2021, he passed away peacefully, with me holding his hand, telling him how much I love him. The outpouring of love and support from all over the world was surreal. So many people coming together, grieving together.
It was amazing. People in London, Australia, Germany, just amazed. It was amazing.
I'll never forget him as a patient. I cared for him a great deal and wished I could have done more for him or met him earlier so we could have helped him more.
I share his story so that you know what an incredible man your dad was. I'm honoring his legacy to bring awareness to this deadly disease and help prevent other families from experiencing the same heartbreaking loss.
The thing I'm most happy about as Chris's friend was that he met you. He would just be so proud of this job. and what you're doing. And he'd be proud that you're doing it now through the toughest times. Like, it's gonna get easier, but he'd be proud that's like, yeah, don't wait around. Like, make this now, you know? Like, show our boy, like, what you can do. Like, he would be your #1 supporter. He's here.
Lincoln, everything I do is for you. You are the light of my life. I see so much of Chris in you, and I am forever grateful that he will always live on through you. With all of my heart, love, Mom.
Oh my goodness, Lakeisha, that was so perfect, and was such a beautiful man, and the fact that you guys ended up together and created a beautiful person in Link, that was really special to watch, and we thank you.
Thank you. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it, and I cry every time. It's just, yeah.
It's good though. Like, one thing I've learned from you through this is, like, I'm crying watching that. How can you not? And to allow it, to feel it, because like, we're here in the Chris Wesley podcast studio that he helped make. You know what I mean? And just like, when we talk about him and when we cry and when we miss him, like, that's celebrating him. Yeah. You know, the last thing I want to do is forget him. I've realized I love talking about Chris, like, whether it's sad, whether it's happy, whether it's laughing, and like, that was such a beautiful.
Yeah, I think like I've learned a lot about grief. It's not a straight line. We've talked a lot. Our group of friends, I think, has banded closer together than ever, and it's like every single night that I can still hear his laugh, and that's what I want to remember, because there were thousands of hours before we knew what would happen, where we would just hang out with Wes and you get him going on something, and there's no other person I've ever known like him once he gets going on a topic. I mean, I'll never forget at the Combine the time when he went on like a 2-hour tirade about paper towels and how they're put together industry-wise. It's just like, he was a subject matter expert on everything and a best friend.
I stopped buying those paper towels, by the way. So. I was like, sorry, Chris, I can't use those paper towels anymore.
No. You know, since Chris left us, that fundamentally changed the show, and it changed our lives. And I think the beautiful thing with Link being with us and the miracle that he is, when you tell the story and you remember and see how it all happened, where Wes got sick, and then he was okay, and then he got sick again, and in that okay moment is when Link entered the world. I mean, that's a beautiful thing, and when you look at Link and we see him and we get together, because we're all family. Link is a nephew to us, you know what I'm saying? And like, that's the celebration of Wes too. So we just thank you so much, Lakeisha, because it's unimaginable, like what you've had to do and how well you've done it, and to be involved with a piece like this, and a lot of help behind the scenes too, and everybody did so great. Remembering this and remembering, you know, naming this studio after Wes is all because we love the man and we don't want him to disappear, and he won't.
I can't, like, whenever you guys start the show off with, you know, in the Chris Wesley podcast studio, I smile every time. Like, I love that. Like, I love talking about him. Like, I don't ever want to forget him. Like, that's like my worst fear. Like, I write in a journal, I try to remember as much as I can for Lincoln, because it's just, you know, it's going to get to an age where he's going to ask about his dad, and that's why I made this for him. So
that was the hardest part of the London thing, was like thinking, you know, when they honored him there, thinking that they won't do it again. We'll always be thinking of him, and when we are here in the Chris Wesley podcast studio, like, I think about the gratitude of us. Like, we're living out our dreams, and Chris got to live out his dreams in terms of what he wanted to do for his career, and now to see you like living out your dreams as a producer too. Like, if I take one thing from Wes, it wasn't just that he was fine in between those two between those two cancer battles, is that he had gratitude inside of him that I never seen from another person, and that, like, we don't need that. We don't need to have that battle to have that sort of gratitude. That, like, we're here and we should be grateful that we have each other, that we have you, one of my best friends in the world, you know, and because that's what he'd want. It really would.
I know for us, like, when we'd cover football, And Wes was like a tape head. He'd watch everything, and I'm sort of a tape head, not maybe necessarily.
You're a tape dog.
Yeah, a little bit in that realm. But like when you'd make a point and he'd just say, look at you and say, I agree, you'd think I've done my job for the day. And I think if you look at the job that you did, he couldn't be more proud of what you did. I mean, to see your career and how it's changed since you guys first met too, what you've done right here is something you can show Link forever. And there's no way to forget Wes, because you see it in Link's eyes every time he smiles, frowns, runs around. He's just the cutest.
He pushes me like every day. Like, I honestly think sometimes if it wasn't for him, I would think that, you know, all of that was a dream. Like, did it really happen? But when I see Link, it's like, no, like that really did happen. Like, this little boy, like, lights up my life. Like, he pushes me, he keeps me going. He shows me that the world is beautiful again, because I've always been like a happy, optimistic person, and this kind of like killed my innocence. But I see it through him, like the little things that he gets so excited for. Like, I love, you know, just showing him new things, and it's just like I see the world through his eyes, and I know that's what Wes would want. I know that he would want, you know, enjoy life, you know, enjoy this moment. Don't take it for granted, because it's, you know, it's not guaranteed.
He taught all of us that, and beautifully said, and thank you again for putting that together and sharing it with the audience and sharing it with us. It's the first time we saw it, and we're all floored by how special it was. And thank you, Lakeisha, for joining us. We love you.
I do want to say one thing, though. I wanted to thank everybody that donated to the GoFundMe account, Greaves for putting it together.
Yes.
I never got a chance to, you know, get on the podcast and say that, because every time I thought about it, I would just get too choked up to even like mention it to you guys. But like, that means the world to me. I tried to read as many comments as I could, and just like the world, just everybody grieving together. Like, I read as much as I can, and it's just like, it's so beautiful to know like what an impact he made on like strangers who never even met him.
Yeah,
absolutely. If you, the listeners, the outpouring of grief and support, I'll never forget that as long as I live.
We'll have you back when your Rams are in the Super Bowl. You should give them some analysis.
There you go. Lakeisha, Wesley, thank you very much. Thank you for everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week. We love you, Wes.